realize, I looked at his work, and I didn't realize there was a lot of maritime stuff in it. I thought, wow, this guy really ought to be in the American Society of Marine Artists, which I've been in for a long time. And then I realized he is. So I really feel, we talked about tonight at dinner about kindred spirits. I think one of the advantages, I'm sure, that all of you feel when you come here is you're with kindred spirits. People who have the same ideas, people who think of the same things, people who love the same things, and perhaps are passionate about the same sort of painting things that you are. At least I feel that way. So I talked with Mick this evening, and I thought, geez, this guy is a very kindred spirit. He's another plein air nut, so he paints outdoors a lot. I love that. I'm very passionate about that. And you can see from his work that he is too. So I believe that tonight you will see some really impressive, I didn't say this to you at dinner, some really impressive things in his style of painting, something I try to emulate very unsuccessfully, and I really admire the things that you do. So I don't mean to give you a big head or anything. Okay. So with that, let me introduce Mick McAndrews.
How's my volume? Is that good? Better? Better?
Good.
Better? Don't go that way. Come this way. Thank you for the invitation to come and spend an evening painting. My wife Becky and I in the back, my business manager, we're thrilled to be here. I want to thank Mike for the invitation to come and the leadership of the Niagara Frontier Watercolor Society for this opportunity. I love to paint, and to see such a large group to come out and paint together, just very touching. Thank you for being here. I love to paint. It's a passion in my life. Stay away from the speaker. Avoid the light, stay away from the speaker. Fine. Maybe I should go back there where it's all set up for me. I'm a big fan when you talk about how to paint. I'm a big fan of design. I talk a lot about design, the elements and principles of design, when I offer a more extended class or workshop session. You know, unity, harmony, dominance, balance, gradation, repetition with variation and contrast, those things that make a painting a work of art versus a photograph, which is a work of art in and of itself. I like to paint outside to be inspired by the world and the beauty therein, to try and capture the complexity and so much of what there is when you go outside to paint on site, as simply and as impressionistically, as spontaneously, as freshly, as loosely as possible. So when I use photographs, that's always my goal as well. This is a photograph of some boats along a pier on the Chesapeake Bay, down closer to us in Maryland. It's a beautiful photograph with lots of amazing boats, incredible amount of detail that I want to use as inspiration for a painting, but I do not want to copy the photograph. The work that we have to do as artists, as painters, I think, is to translate, to transform either the wonder of what we see outside or the wonder of what we see in a photograph into a work of art. That's our job. To me, the job is not necessarily being able to paint. It's much more about being able to design and create a compelling, interesting, and engaging work of art. So this is an interesting photograph. It's a terrible, terrible printout of that photograph, which is actually not bad for me either, because it's going to help me avoid looking at too much of that detail when I get into painting. But I just want to use this as the inspiration, the reason why I would get up off the sofa or get up off of the stage and come to brushes, palette, and paper and try and work on a painting. It inspires me to try and capture this and to create a work of art from it. So with design and all that goes into design, the tools that we have at our disposal, line, shape, size, direction, color, texture, and value, all the complexities therein. When we're in a situation where we only have a couple of hours to paint, which is very similar, in my view, to painting outside and plein air, try and kind of condense that, boil it down to what I think are only the most important aspects of a painting. And there are three of them for me, maybe four, but primarily there's three. And that is interesting shapes, a value pattern, and a variety of edges in the work that we do. I like to say that shapes in a painting are more important than the subject. The shapes that we make when we paint are more important than the subject that we've chosen. This is going to be a painting about boats and a pier, and I've dropped some people in, and we'll do reflections, and we'll have some cast shadows from strong sunlight. There's a lot that will be going on, but it is the shapes that evolve as the painting takes shape that are the most important aspect to me. So the shape up here of the sky as it meets these boats in the pier versus the shape of the pier and the boats themselves versus the shape of the reflections in the water. And I might do something to balance all that out down here because there's a lot of artistic weight up here, a lot of artistic weight. So I want to balance that out maybe with something down here in the foreground, and we'll think about what that might be. Maybe just some sort of a foreground landmass or something to add some balance to the painting overall. But I'm thinking shapes, 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 shapes. The shapes that I create as I paint and create this painting are more important than the actual subject matter that I've chosen. And these sound to me really simple when I say them. Shapes are more important than subject. Sounds really simple. For me, it's the highest level of artistic aspiration. If when I'm doing a painting, I can be thinking about shapes and not about my subject, that to me is a whole nother level of artistic understanding, merit, and I think production. So I think shapes before I get too wrapped up in subject. I think I've done a pretty good job of designing and laying out space in this painting, so I've done some work there to make that happen. Then I think about values. Simple, three values: dark value, light value, and middle value. How can I apply values when I get to painting in this painting? So I do, to no great surprise, I do a value study, a simple 5-minute, maybe 10-minute value study that just lays out for me where the darks, where the lights, and where the middle values are going to be. And if I do this work before I begin painting, I can rely on this much, much more so than I rely on this. I might use this some when I'm drawing, but I'm not going to use this much at all when I get to painting. Ideally, once I get into the painting, I'm listening more to what the painting is telling me, what the painting is asking for, what the painting needs, than whether I'm close to the photograph. Because guess what? When the painting is done, no one's ever going to see the photograph. No one's ever going to say, but he didn't put that light post in. Or what about that little dinghy over there in the photograph? No one's ever going to know that. The only thing that will live on after tonight is this. So this is where I want to pay attention. This is where I want to be focused and trying to come as close as I can to this value study. I have this book, which is just chock full of value studies. They're little Stillman and Byrne sketchbooks, and all I put in them are value studies for paintings. Probably some of the paintings I have over on the tables there on the side of the room have their value studies in here. Well, if I do this well, the painting is so much more likely to turn out the way I want it to and be a credible work of art. So simple, not complicated, very, very quick drawing, thinking about shapes, trying to get the values right. And if I've done this, the work, the planning, the thinking, the drawing, if I've done this, if I've done the value pattern and developed a pattern that I think is going to lead to a credible painting, when I'm painting, I'm thinking about a variety of edges. I'm thinking about hard edges, I'm thinking about soft edges, I'm thinking about rough texture edges as I paint. And I don't want to go for too far a distance in the painting without changing my edges, just like color. I want to vary the color up too as I move along. Don't go more than a couple of inches without varying up the color. Same thing is true with edges. And I hope everyone understands what I mean when I talk about edges. Hard edge is a defined line edge, soft edge, which is more like just a wet, fresh wash, and then a rough texture or dry brushstroke where the pigment's just being deposited on the grain of the paper and not down into the valleys. So those kinds of variations in color, in texture, and in value add excitement and interest in our paintings. That's what makes the painting itself sing. It's what makes it engaging. It's what makes, I think, someone look at it and feel nostalgic towards some place that they have been or some part of their life, or reminds them of something that maybe they need in their life, like they need a blue painting in their room, in their home. Gallery owner once told me that the only thing that drives people to buy a painting, excuse me, is the color or the memory. Color or the memory. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that's how things tend to play out. So, shapes, values, edges when I'm painting, and then of course there's color. We all have a palette with anywhere between 15 and 20 different colors in it, and there's hundreds more that all the paint manufacturers have to tempt us with really sexy names. I have to own that pigment, just the way it sounds. Right here, bloodstained red or something the other day. Someone had that color name. It goes on and on and on. I think the colors that I use are the same colors that you use. I have yellows, I have orange, red, I have browns, I have blues, I have one single green, which we won't use tonight, but Pearl Green by Winsor Newton, which is the only green I've ever found that actually is half decent out of a tube. Still needs to be mixed, but it's actually fairly attractive out of the tube. I prefer to mix greens when it comes right down to it. And then I have a couple of what I call boutique-y colors. Yes, Mike?
You have used black?
I have neutral tint in my palette, so I do on rare occasion, not with any frequency, just to darken a passage. I find that neutral tint is more beautiful, mixes better than other blacks, your lamp blacks and ivory blacks. They look dead to me when you put them on the paper, and neutral tint is actually fairly attractive. Neutral tint I use oftentimes in these value studies. Or Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray is another attractive dark pigment that can be used to darken a passage. Thank you for asking that question, Mike. I'd like to keep these kind of sessions informal. This is a fairly large group, but if you have a question, please feel free to ask. I will try to answer as best I can, or at the break if you want to ask, that's fine, or after we're done tonight, that's fine as well. Pigments. So I have a couple of, what I guess I'll call boutique-y pigments. Jean Brillant, which is a warm white. It's the guy sitting over here in the corner. I really adore that color. It's a very, very thick, pigmenty color, and it will actually stand up on top of a wet wash. So in landscape paintings, if you want to get a variety of textures and colors, throwing some Jean Brillant in will make all the difference. It's a Holbein color. It's spelled Jaune, brilliant, #1, and I called it Jaune Brilliant for a long time until I did a demonstration just like this. And when I was done, someone who spoke fluent French pulled me aside and said, just so you know, it's called Jean Brillant, which means brilliant yellow in French. That's the amount of French that I know. You know, I've exhausted my knowledge of the language, but I know that. So it's Jaune Brilliant, but Jean Brillant from me from now on. I have lavender, which is another Holbein color. It's an opaque blue, probably a combination of cobalt blue and maybe Chinese white.
You can see it better on the screen.
Thank you for that. Which is here. Another opaque color does beautiful things. I like to say Jean-Briand and lavender do beautiful things wherever you put them. Don't worry about where to put them in, because they always do beautiful things. They're both wonderful, wonderful pigments. And then I have the traditional blues, cerulean and cobalt and ultramarine. I have cobalt turquoise, which I use, a nice green mixing color. And actually it's a nice color to mix and make grays with as well. So that's about it. There's nothing overly exotic in my palette. I use a lot of Winsor Newton colors. Why, you might ask? Because they're the only paint manufacturer that sells those 37 milliliter tubes. I don't know why the other paint manufacturers don't do that. It's less expensive, it lasts a lot longer, so I use them whenever I can get them. But Holbein does not do that, and they're the only ones who make those couple of pigments that I mentioned. Brushes, I have the same brushes you do. I have no kind of unique brushes, I don't think. I try not to buy expensive brushes because the synthetic brushes that are made today are certainly, to me at least, as good as any of the natural hair brushes. Natural hair brushes just cost a lot more and they last a lot less time. So I use synthetic brushes as much as I can. And then I can beat the pulp out of them, which I really like too. Don't have to try and take care of them, don't have to worry about cleaning them out. One of my favorite brushes is this $2 from AC Moore, quote-unquote Chinese brush, which I can beat the heck out of in tree passages. It doesn't matter because I can always buy another one for next to nothing. Whew, that was a whirlwind tour. I need to get painting. I got a whole half-sheet painting to do. Any questions, or does that make sense? Did I miss anything? Any glaring omissions? I have to paint now? Okay.
What kind of paper do you use?
This is Saunders Waterford 140-pound rough texture paper. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful paper. There's plenty of beautiful papers. Arches makes wonderful paper, as does Fabriano, and on and on and on. For me, I just think that Saunders accepts pigment more readily. It's actually, if you hold a piece of Saunders paper, it's almost like cloth. It's so beautiful and soft. It's just a beautiful paper to work with. So I like the texture, the kind of feel of it. But there's lots and lots of good papers. I don't use 300-pound paper unless someone gives me a sheet, at which time I set it aside and wait until I'm going to have some divine inspiration so I don't ruin that $1 million sheet of paper. I ruin paintings all the time. How about you? All the time. 300-pound paper. Whew. I don't want to be under that kind of pressure. I'd rather paint in front of 100 people. Okay, so my goal here is to paint very loose and fresh, big bold strokes. Use some big brushes, use some small brushes. I have boats that are close to me, I have boats that are farther away, I have large boats, I have small boats, I have distant boats, I have people, I put lots of people in. There's no people in that photograph. I could have gotten away with putting no people in. But what fun would that be? People have a lot of interest, a lot of excitement. We're people. We see people in a painting, zoom, our eyes go right to them, so I better do a good job. How am I going to do that? Come to the workshop, I'll tell you. Okay. So I want to do the sky in a really simple, fresh wash. I want to do the water, bring it down, have it nice graded wash down to something darker here in the foreground. Sunlight's coming from this direction, so I want to have some cast shadows. The back of that boat should be lit up, back of that boat, side of that boat, this nice cast shadow across this boat, so partially lit, partially in shadow. At least part of this boat will be lit up, so that'll help drive home that idea of where the sunlight's coming from. But I don't want to have, here's a boat, here's a boat, here's a person, here's a post, here's a person, here's a person, here's just a boat, here's a boat, 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 boat. I want to have one big shape. Paint that whole dock area the way I try and paint a cityscape. It's a cityscape, I think, over there. I do not paint building, building, building. There's 100 buildings in your typical cityscape. I paint one shape, one interesting shape that suggests 100 buildings, that transitions from cool to warm to cool to warm, that'll have texture variation in it. You know what a city scene looks like, just like you know what a dock scene looks like. So I don't need to beat you over the head with every single thing that would be included in a typical marine scene. I need to suggest it competently so that you begin to partner with me, become part of the painting process. I take you so far down the road and then you engage and you pick up and you walk down the rest of the road with me. Should I turn it down a little bit?
Turn it down a little bit.
And then I said to Dawn that perhaps that's the right volume. And she agreed. Okay, so I'm going to put that first wash on, and I did bring a hairdryer just so I can quickly dry it off enough so that we can go right in and begin painting boats and things. We're going to take a break at some point, and yep, Mike or somebody will let me know when that is. I tend to paint quickly. I don't spend a lot of time on paintings. It takes me all day to do a painting, or it takes me a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months to do a painting. I met a gentleman last week who told me he'd been working on a painting all summer. All summer. I couldn't relate. Nice guy too. Wow. What do you do? Tink. Okay, I'll come back tomorrow. How does that work? How does that work? Okay. Any questions? Or are we ready to go? Okay. What I like to do when I begin is to take my spray bottle. I use a spray bottle to help keep the paper and the pigment moist with watercolor. Lots of folks talk about, think about, are concerned about creating mud in their paintings. My experience is that there's no such thing as mud as long as the pigment in the paper is wet. You can do anything as long as the painting is wet. It's when the painting dries and you go back in with another layer of pigment that you begin to fall into the danger of creating something which would be an ugly, opaque, muddy passage. So I use the spray bottle to help keep the paper and the pigment moist. I use a sponge, a simple, inexpensive house sponge, to regulate the amount of pigment and water in my brush, which is a very, very critical aspect of watercolor painting, that pigment to water ratio. That's what a lot of practice will help us get better at. And then we'll just have some painting fun. Have some painting fun. There's bound to be some things that are going to be astoundingly wonderful in this painting. There are bound to be some things that will be not so astoundingly wonderful. That's what every painting is about. Triumphs and failures. Every painting is a unique combination of triumphs and failures. And the sooner I accept that and am willing to move forward and work within that, the more relaxed and usually happier I am with the end product. Okay, so a little bit of a misting spray bottle just to get the paper thinking about misbehaving. And then, simple, simple, simple sky. Simple, simple, simple sky. So a little bit of cobalt blue, and maybe some brown matter. They play really nicely together, really, really nicely together. And then maybe we'll add a little bit of burnt sienna or something oranges down toward the bottom to suggest, I don't know, late day, sun, early morning sun, whatever the viewer decides. Okay. Oh, that's light. That's light. Mike and I were talking some at dinner, and Becky, about the two Beckys, we had two Beckys with us, about why we don't paint in oil. And one of the reasons is it would take me an hour to do a sky if I was oil painting. I'm halfway done, I've been painting for 30 seconds. That's what I like. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so maybe now if we get down here, and I always feel like when I'm painting the sky, that's the most important part of the painting, because it's the first thing I'm painting. You ever feel that way? When we're done, if the viewer says, gosh, you did an awful job on that sky, we will have failed miserably. Because this is not a painting in any way or shape about a sky. Right? Okay. It's a little bit of positive reinforcement. Okay, we'll put that down there.
And that's brown matter?
It is brown matter. How did you know that?
You told her. She's a painter.
She's smart.
Excuse me. Don't scare me like that. I want there to be some degree of mystery in all this. Okay, so that's that. Oh boy, now I'm going to get in trouble because I'm going to start moving this around a little bit. Okay, so we're going to come down. I got to think now. Think about the areas where you want to keep white. I want you to be white. Okay. Right, you're going to be white. Okay, and so far I'm hitting on all four cylinders. Okay, you're going to be white. It's just painting. Okay, let's keep going. Some more of this blue-brown stuff. That's that. Come right down through here. Like that. Okay. I want just the side of that boat to be lit up, and the back of that boat to be lit up. Okay. So far I'm remembering everything. Everything. I'm remembering everything. I never remember everything. Okay. Okay, so some more blue, some more of this brown matter. And here we go. I'm going to the back of that boat. I'm going to go right over those. I don't want to go over those sides, do I? Nope, let's leave that just the way it is. Again, my thinking side is impressive. Remembering everything.
How would you know if you forgot something?
All right, I'm going to stop talking because you're absolutely right. Okay, I don't want to have a hard line there, so I'm going to wet that and then keep going down here into the stuff down here. Now, if I can, there we go. Here we go. Okay. A little bit of white gives some nice feel, I think, of the sunlight. Okay. So fast brush strokes to get some of that rough texture on the water, which suggests what? Sunlight. Reflections on the water. Nice. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. I want to get this darker. How do you get it to be darker? More pigment, less water. More pigment, less water. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. easy, cowboy. Holy moly. Just like that. Okay. Get down through this quickly. Wow, that's still wet. Really dark. What's wrong with you? Dark. What's wrong with you? Dark. Oh boy. Dark. A little bit of a transition from lighter up above to darker down below. We got some nice water reflections there. Now, if I can, while that's still damp, let me grab this round brush and get something dark. Dark! Holy mackerel, dark, dark. Oh boy, even some of that. And just get, if we can, some of this sort of stuff. Even some of that up there, a little bit. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Didn't forget anything. Can't believe it. This night is magic. Okay. I'm going to dry this off a little bit once it stops mingling and merging. And then we'll go right in and start painting the boots and stuff in the background. Any questions at all at this point? We still friends? Cool up above, transitioning to a little bit warmer to suggest something happening out there toward the horizon line, which, by the way, we're not stating in any way. If there's any way that we're indicating where that horizon line might be, it's in the fact that those people, all their heads are on the same level. Eye level being equal to horizon line. So it's somewhere out around there. But we're not defining it in land masses, no sky actually touching the water. It's good, that's painterly stuff, I like that. Okay, give me 2 minutes and we'll get right back to it. Okay. Haven't looked at our photograph once. It's turned over on the table. It's no longer an important part of this painting process. The value study is important, the drawing that I did is important, the thinking that I did in preparation for this painting is important. And I love to look at a painting at this stage in the process because it's already telling the story. It's almost like if I do more, I'm going to ruin it. Got that beautiful sunlight coming across, telling me it's either early morning or late afternoon, lighting up the sides of those boats. It's got a beautiful story being told already. I feel like all I can do is screw it up. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do that. Okay. Another reason why I don't want to be too tied back to the photograph, and I may reference it at some point, we'll see. But Ed Whitney, famous watercolor painter and teacher in the 20th century, used to call it tick-tock painting. Where you tick, you look at your photograph and talk, you paint it, tick-tock, tick-tock. Do not want to fall into that trap. Bad place to be. Okay. With marine paintings, I have two kind of rules of thumb. The The first is because there's so many beautiful slanting, sloping lines on boats, rigging, nets, all those things, beautiful, graceful, slanting lines which are so hard to get right. When in doubt, make them straight. Not necessarily straight, horizontal straight, but straight from bow to stern. They always look correct. Nothing worse than a banana boat. Nothing worse. Unless it's a canoe. When in doubt, make the line straight. It always looks correct. The other one is put more rigging in. No such thing as too much rigging. What's worse than a boat painting with one mast and nothing else? You know that there's more. There's rigging and smaller masts and antennas and ropes and ladders and all sorts of stuff. More rigging, more rigging, more rigging. When in doubt, make the line straight and put in more rigging. If your marine scene isn't working, put in more rigging. We will get there. Okay, I'm going to start over here on the right. I'm going to work my way across the painting. How the heck am I going to do that? Not very carefully, that I can tell you. And I'm going to start with a rigger brush. What? This guy right here, this number 2 rigger brush, I think it's a Skoda. It's old enough that I can't even read whatever writing is on it, but it's a nice kind of coarse hair rigger brush, makes beautiful brush marks. Good in trees, good for dock pillars, good for ladders, just about anything. So let's use it and get started. Quit talking and start painting. You talk too much, you bother me. Okay. A little bit of blue, a little bit of brown, this dark value, dark value, dark value, dark value. Got this whole area here with dock and people and boats and the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one brush stroke. So here we go. Just like that. Oh, that's terribly inaccurate. Oh, you ruined it. I love that. Love that. Okay. Rough texture, got some hard texture, not too much soft texture, dark over here, lighter over there. This is not unlike the sky in that if when I get done, someone says he did a horrible job on that section of dock over there, I will have failed miserably. Get started there, put in a couple of dock posts. Again, with my rigger brush, love this brush. Okay, so far so good. They should be connected maybe like that. This one goes off like that. Already looks like a dock scene to me. Just had to get that first brush stroke in. Once that's in, it's a piece of cake. It's all downhill from here. Okay. I'm using primarily cobalt blue, burnt sienna, brown madder. Value, I'm thinking value, I'm not thinking about color. The color doesn't matter if I get the value right. Okay, maybe there's a ladder over here. Better be very careful with that. Thank you for laughing. 2 vertical lines and a couple of horizontal lines says ladder. That's all I need to say. Okay, let's take a minute and let's get something really dark and go around that boat. Matter of fact, let's do this. Okay. I want to go around this boat because boat's important to me. Put a couple of those things in there, a little bit of that in there, a little bit of that in there. What are those things? Who the heck knows? This is the stuff, Mike, that makes those asthma people crazy. I talk about boat stuff and marine stuff and dock stuff. What exactly is that? No idea. No idea. And don't tell anyone on the asthma board, but I don't really care. I want the painting to be successful. Okay, here I come down around this boat. Things are starting to happen. Things are starting to happen. Okay, I'm starting to say boat. And around you, okay. Okay, let's go ahead and I want to mess the back of that boat, do a little bit of that. And then maybe, let's see, let's go ahead and do those boats back in the background there. How do I do background boats? Zing, lighter, lighter's good. I like that. That's kind of like a boat. That says boat to me. Few brushstrokes as possible. As few brushstrokes as possible. Few brushstrokes as possible. Keep it simple. And there's a boat.
Are you looking at your value study?
Yes and no. Yes, kind of, sort of. I did the value study, so I kind of have it in my head. But yes, the value study, I'm not looking at the photograph at all, and that's a little more important to me, the fact that I'm not getting hung up in doing that. Okay, I'll leave some of those white spaces in there. Closing in on people. Oh boy, oh boy, oh mommy. Already this early on, I gotta do people. Oh boy. Maybe I'll go back to my rigger brush for just a minute and put in a couple of things back here, some masks and things. Not quite that dark about you. What is that stuff?
Tree.
Boat stuff.
Does that make sense when I say that, boat stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't get hung up. It's a death trap. Look at how inaccurate that line is. Wow. Holy mackerel. No one's going to believe that's a boat. Nobody. They're never going to believe that. I can always grab my credit card and straighten it up a little bit, though, can't I? Don't believe that. Cheater, you cheater, you cheated. Okay, now I'm going to get this, let's do one more thing here. Let's put this another doc poster 2 in there. So let's grab a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And there should be something like that that goes across here, like that. It's good, good. Okay, you gonna be like that. Okay, nice rough texture in there. Hard texture, rough texture. There's a lot of soft texture in there, so they kind of sing well together. So make that a little bit of rough texture in there. Again, what's that?
Boat stuff.
You just say that to make me happy. Come on, really?
That's dock stuff.
Is there a difference between boat stuff and dock stuff?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it was Tony Couch who said, your viewer will believe you if you tell them with authority. Tell them like you mean it. I meant to do that. That's how that is supposed to look. If I tell you by doing this sort of thing, it looks like you didn't know what you were doing and weren't sure when you started putting those brush strokes in. So avoid that pitfall. Do it with authority. What's the worst that can happen? It'll be wrong. Okay, so here we go. Get a little bit of blue, a little bit of brown. Same colors. I'm going to put in some people. Oh boy. I got this guy over here. Here he comes. Perfect. when you get a chance later, come up and take a look and see how wonderfully, terribly imperfect these folks are. But just because they have that head and those couple of suggested legs, they look like people. Okay, and then there's another person I put down here who's kind of squatted down doing something, who knows what.
Doing stuff.
Could you say that a little louder? Okay, boat stuff. There you go. Here those three people are, adding a lot of interest all of a sudden to this painting. You put people in, stuff starts to happen. Okay, maybe they have, people in marine scenes have fishing poles and things that they carry with them. This guy's doing a job, so he's got to have something. Okay. It's too much fun. Okay, it's a lot going on there. A lot going on. Little area of the painting. Okay, back to more serious matters. When we start putting some reflections in, I want to think about this. Grab a little bit of something bluish, just create some interest inside this boat. Okay, so, and then maybe we get a little bit of a cast shadow down across that boat, because the boat is not flat, it's not a flat surface like that, so maybe it just comes across like this. Okay, you're more interesting for that. Except I got a lot of blue. Ugh, don't put that much brown in. Ooh, careful. Okay. Ugh. I thought that was a good idea. Ugh. Okay. Now, reflections. Darkest part of a boat is where it meets the water. Dark along the bottom of the boat where it meets the water. That marries the boat to the water. Nothing worse than a boat that looks like it was cut out and pasted on the paper. Dark at the bottom of the boat. So we got to get dark along here, dark along here. That's dark, all right. We'll try some cobalt turquoise for a change of pace. That's going to be interesting, dark. Okay, so you need to come down across like this. And across like that. And then you start coming out like this. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Okay. Dark along the bottom of this boat. Okay? Wow, does that pop? Holy moly. Yeah, do a little bit of something darker under there. And then maybe we take some of this and let some of this reflect down here. And then maybe we, just because we can, decide that that should just fade away. Nice watercolor effect. Can't do that in oil paint. Can't do it. Try though you might. You can't do that in oil paint. Oil painters sit up at night. How did that watercolorist do that? Damn it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Okay. going here, that's enough of that. And then where am I? Maybe that too, maybe you two fade away some.
Did you make your own easel or did you buy that?
This piece here,
Yes.
someone came into a class once and set that up, and I went, where did you get that? And they said, my husband made it for me. And he made one for me, but for $10, you can go to Home Depot and buy the PVC piping and make one for yourself. There's really nothing to it. They're just incredibly useful and handy. I use it at home, I use it when traveling.
Does it come apart?
It can, yep, yep,
But it just folds at those legs
Yep.
at the bottom just fold in, right?
yep, yep. Okay, let's keep going here. We're making a lot of progress all of a sudden. These are looking very boaty to me. Reflections of you down into the water. And then, how much more of that do I want? Not a whole lot more. Okay. Let's see, maybe we take this brush and just do, that mast comes out there. All the way down. Maybe it does that. A little rough texture, all that hard texture, and a little rough would be nice. Okay. It's going great. Who am I kidding? It's going great. Okay. Oh, you know what would have been good? That would have been good. For the first time today, I forgot it. I forgot it. The beautiful weight of that boat is not going to reflect dark down into the water. Am I too late to throw some of that out?
The answer is no.
No guts, no glory in watercolor, right? No guts, no glory. What's the worst that can happen? It'll look awful. Okay. All right, let's keep going.
You want to stop?
What's that?
Slide in 3.
Okay, we can stop. Yep. Break time.
10 minutes?
Sure. Yep. A lot of room to cover, lots of stuff to do before the sun sets this evening. So, you, Paul. Okay. Okay, we didn't talk too much about the star of the show, but this boat right here, which just happens to be the biggest of the boats, is also the star of the show. So I'm going to drop a little bit of red in there just to emphasize that point. I'm the star. Pay attention to me. It's where most of the value contrast will be. It's where I'll try and put most of the boat detail, just to make it the most interesting and engaging boat, hopefully. But the fact that it's the largest boat is going to make it also kind of the star of the show. Thank you, everyone, for your fun and funny comments during our break. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you being here and putting up with me. Making this painting out to be such a simple-minded activity. Kind of, sort of, kind of. Okay, so I'm just going to go. So now we've made a lot of progress there already, putting that in. Got more distant boats there, so let's go ahead and do that. Don't get too wrapped up in painting those distant boats, just drop them in. There's a boat window, there's a boat window, there's a boat window. Comes over like that, goes some more. That boat kind of stuff. Over here. And just like that. Maybe that's a bleed over into there a little bit. And we have some what do we do? I need to squeeze out some more pigment. Fresh pigment. How do you get loose and juicy results? Fresh pigment. If you were watching earlier when I set up, I squeezed out a couple of puddles of fresh pigment. Fresh pigment. Lots of water, lots of pigment yields good results. Hard-packed cakes of watercolor pigment rarely lend themselves to exciting, interesting, entertaining, engaging results. Right? Is that true? Does that make sense? You're laughing at me, you're making fun of me, please don't do that. Very sensitive new age kind of guy. Okay, so we got some of that going on there. Maybe we will, just because we're here now, we have some of this pigment mixed up, we'll grab some of this stuff and we'll put in some masts and things. There's a mast. Nothing makes a scene look like a marine scene more than a bunch of masts and rigging.
Are you just dipping that in your paint?
That's all I'm doing.
Okay.
Yep. Boy, does that transform, right?
No, I like it. I like the way it doing line.
Different heights, different widths. This boat needs a couple of masts. Whoa, stick around here. Now it looks like a boat scene. Now all of a sudden it looks like a boat scene to me. The only thing it needs to go along with that, I'm trying to fall in love with this sword brush. Anyone use a brush like this? It's a hard brush, hard to fall in love with.
Why do you want to fall in love with it?
Because it carries a lot of pigment, has a really sharp point, but it's hard to control. So with this we can make all sorts of lines like that, which even lends more credibility to the idea of a marine scene. It's like a boat scene to me. Okay. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Here's my rigger brush, dark, dark stuff, dark, 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 dark stuff, dark, 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 dark. Okay, connecting, this is connected to this, which is connected to this, which is connected to this, this, it's all connected. This dock comes out and goes across over here. Are those the Scottish dancers that I hear?
Yeah. I told you you could dance.
I'm kind of thinking about it, Mike. post, and here's a post, and here's a post.
Second Spanish artist.
Okay, a bunch of that sort of stuff going on up there. We have another person we gotta drop in. And I learned during the break that these gentlemen running the camera can zoom right in on me. I had no idea, now I'm a little scared about it. They said, we can get your every brush stroke. Okay, another person, simple, head, torso, don't want to get too complicated. Okay, what are you doing there, pal? Don't know, doing boat stuff. Got boat jobs to do, don't get in my way. You look believable to me, very credible boat stuff going on there. Let's go ahead and put in this boat making a lot of progress all of a sudden, a lot. Let's put in the back of this boat. Darker. Here we go again, darker, 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 darker. How do you get darker? More pigment, less water. Okay, here you are. Back of that boat. You need to be connected with all this stuff over here. All this stuff needs to be connected. You need to belong to all that. Okay. Maybe that boat has a little more dark stuff over there. Okay. Okay. Let's do it. Let's try this cobalt turquoise for a change of pace, and some blue, and some brown. This is going to be different. We're heading into different territory here. Very busy on the back of that boat. Lots of stuff going on back there. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Do you own a boat? Do you do a lot of boating?
Nope. But I love to paint boats. I love to paint boats. I think they are endlessly fascinating. Something about being on the water, lure of the sea, all that sort of stuff. But I get chastised a lot by people who own boats who tell me that I don't know what the heck I'm painting. And I say, thank you for telling me that. I don't care. The truth is I try and learn. When people tell me things like, I was talking to someone at break about the fact that spacers on a sailboat, I painted one once where the spacers were way down by the cabin of the sailboat. They said spacers, their whole job is to keep the rigging lines out from the mast, so they go up high. I learned. Now I put spacers up high, not down below. So I try to learn from people who know about boats, but it is not an area of expertise necessarily for me. What is that big round thing? I put that in thinking that would be good, and it looks ridiculous.
Radar.
Okay, let's put this boat's mast in something like this, right up off the page. Right up off. Nice. Nice, 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 nice. And another one just like that. Maybe this boat's mast. Or something about putting it in.
Now, there's a point of too much, you know.
Okay, right up off. Nice, dark, thick thick mast on that book because it's the star of the show. You need to have a very powerful mast. And some smaller ones maybe. Smaller one over here. Ooh, that's pretty powerful too. Careful. Don't have too much fun. Now I need to put some reflections in here, which will set off the other side of this boat. So let's get this. There's a lot of water built up down at the bottom of this boat, a lot.
Your paper's dry now, isn't it?
In some places. Not everywhere, but in some places, yes. Dark. Here we go again. Dark. A little bit of that again. Dipping right into the pigment wells and then going right to the paper. Staying away from holy moly. The important thing for me to do here is under that boat and then over here where it meets up with this boat. Okay. All right, there's the reflection of this part of the boat down here. Okay. Okay. And then there's all sorts of
The sky looks good.
say that again?
The sky looks good.
Okay. Got that. Maybe we do this. Okay, keep going. We've got a lot of painting to do. You don't have a whole lot of time left. You've got a lot of painting to do. Get busy. I want to come under this boat over here.
You can just do one small part well.
Nope. Who said that? Nope. Okay. We haven't done any of this. Maybe we'll do some of that here. One of the things we can do is take a thirsty brush, right? A damp brush. And make some movement lines in the water that way. Okay. Keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going. This boat is in the shadow over here. We said that. Bring it down. And then again. Darkest part of that boat is where it meets the water. So really dark along here. And let it narrow up with that shadow over there. And then just a little bit. Here's that guy, and here's that guy. This is too much fun. Too much fun. Okay. All right. this part of the dock to put in. But you know what, while we're here, we have some of this color mixed up. Let's go ahead and put this sailboat in over here. It's getting wet up here. Okay, do some of that. Some of that. And some of that. Something a little darker, just at least a little bit of reflection of this boat. Again, not an important player, just a little bit of reflection. And of course, because we got that nice tall mast, we got to do something with that. And we have to this thing that covers up the sail. What's that thing called? Better to call it what it is. And then let's grab our credit card and put this guy in. Okay, good. He looks good. Just what I wanted. Just background player, creating some perspective with this whole scene. And there's two little sailboats way out there, again creating even more perspective. How complicated do they need to be? Really, really, really simple. Oh my goodness me. There's a boat and there's a boat.
Can you move your frame to the right just about 6 inches so we can see what you're doing there? The lamp is like, thank you.
Better?
Yeah, that's great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, distant boats. Distant boats creating some nice aerial perspective.
Nice.
Boats that are closer to me are a little bit warmer. Boats as they get farther away get cooler, just like mountains and rolling hills off into the distance. Okay. That got ugly. Interesting watercolor effect there. How'd I do that? Dark, dark, dark. Really need to get some dark stuff here so we can create the final section of this dock back here. Right up against that boat. Get those last couple of people in. There's another stair. Dock posts here at the end of the dock. Keep that simple. Put those people in. Don't want them to be as dark in value as their distant cousins, so try and keep them simpler. Really simple. Okay. Even that dock's a little dark in value, to be honest with you. Lighten that up a little bit. Okay, we're fast coming coming on close to done. Close to done. People are in, boats are in, gotta finish you up. Your cast shadow needs to be darker, got some masked work to do, and then gotta think about how to add some more balance and weight down here. Okay. Let's take that. Any questions, or are we doing okay? Oh, we got a lot of time, we got a lot of time. Relax. Relax.
I'm a little confused
But
with
my-
you know, the star of the show there, that boat in the middle.
Yep.
And where that mast is coming from.
This
Yeah,
cabin is kind of 2 levels. So it's sitting down on the 2nd level of the cabin, is the answer to your question. Did that help? Tell you what we'll do something, I hope in just a minute or two, maybe make that a little bit more evident. Okay. Let's do this. This is the only section of the cabin that's actually facing the sun. All of this is in shadow. So I need to come back in with something cool and tell that story. Careful. Don't be too powerful in your storytelling. But we actually got rid of that mast because it was still damp. Does that make more sense now? It's coming down onto this level of the cabin. Well, it wasn't until I put that in. Now I don't know where it is. Oh well, triumphs and failures. Okay, so we need to do some more mask work. Let's finish off the top.
We need more rigging.
Oh, you're darn right we do. You're darn tootin'. There's a light or something up there. There's another light or something up there. You can put in a couple of what I lovingly like to refer to as hoo-has and doodads up here, things that folks no doubt need to have. Okay. I'll go back there and need some too. And even this boat over here might need some. Okay. More masts and rigging. I heard the call to arms. This boat's got to have a nice tall mast, maybe it goes right up off on some antennas and things. There's a lot of boats I'm saying to you through this mast work that are not being painted into the painting. They're back behind. I can't see them, but I know that they're back there. So let's go ahead and do some more of that. Some are very, very faint. They're not nearly as pronounced. Some go like that. Whatever that thing is, it's one of those.
Cool.
Nets or something, right? Creates a lot of interest. Wow. Careful. Careful, don't get too crazy. That's what that guy's working on, one of those things. Okay. Looking good. Wow, wait.
Good.
Okay, let's get, yep. Here we go, trying to love you, trying to love this brush, trying to love it, making it hard. We need some more of this kind of stuff coming down from up off the picture plane. Here's a thicker one. Why are you laughing? You think I meant to do that? You don't think I'm a consummate professional? How dare you? Insulting. Okay, so that sort of stuff.
So you're putting in a couple of places to lead our eye off the page or to get us to enter the page.
You talk about this rigging line stuff?
Yeah,
The ones that go above the paper, yeah.
Yeah, it's telling you that that mask goes way up off the picture plane.
Yeah,
Yeah, way up higher, so it's not all contained within. That to me is really kind of boring storytelling. There's stuff going on out there, there's stuff going on up here, out there, and certainly even out there. How much more of that do I want to do? Not too much.
Good.
Okay. So, we could really get crazy, and why not? Let's go ahead and grab some of this orange stuff. We don't have anything really that warm in the whole painting. Let's go ahead and put in, I think, a light preserver over here. Holy moly, really? Wow! Zoom, bam, wham. And if that boat has one, perhaps this boat ought to have one too, it's a little smaller. Wow! Maybe our guy kneeling down here, who we almost lost, is wearing a life vest. Throw that orange in, we can throw it in anywhere. We can do the same thing with this hot red. Maybe this guy is wearing a nice red jacket. Oh, that takes nerve. And once I put in a little bit of red there, I can put a little bit of red in just about anywhere on the end of that dock post. Nice accents of color, very nice. Nice, 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 nice. Okay, I want to come back in here and maybe add some windows or something in there. Get to that in just a second. Maybe a little bit darker. Kind of at the noodling stage. Most of the hard work is done. And really, this is a mess. I'm so happy. It's watercolor, it should be a mess. For me, this is a me thing. There's nothing magical about a watercolor that tells me every single thing and has everything in its place. For me, a watercolor that leaves a lot to the imagination and has a lot of questionable stuff going on is much more interesting. Much, much more so. Okay. We can noodle for a while, and tempting as that is, I don't want to get too caught up in noodling around. Let's go ahead. I talked about artistic weight and balance. Right now, this painting has virtually everything going on up here. So just as I did in the value sketch, I put this little bit of a land mass popping out here, maybe with a piling and some things that would just add some artistic weight down here. I think help balance the whole thing a little better. So let's go ahead and do that. And we can try those scratch out rocks with our credit card, which would be nice too. Okay, this is going to get scary, which is great. So, big brush, big flat brush, really dark pigment. Cobalt turquoise, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna, brown madder. What color is that? Wham! It's that color. Whew. Holy moly. What color is that? It's that color. Whoa. Really, 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 really thick pigment that I put on and then let it sit for a couple of minutes and soak into the fibers of the paper. Then I can go in with a credit card and I can scrape them out. And the pigment that will have soaked into the paper will stay underneath, makes an interesting rock effect. But I gotta get really thick pigment. Holy mackerel thick pigment. To the point of almost being black, or the appearance of black, but we know that we're dipping into all these interesting, entertaining colors. So it's anything but black. And I gotta make the shape interesting. Make the shape interesting. The shape is important too. Think about the shape. Pigment, 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 pigment. Woo! Bring it down, let it come across, not halfway, over here somewhere. Any questions while I schlep on the thick pigment?
I have a question for Becky.
Okay.
Does he talk to himself like this all the time in your house?
Sometimes. I will stop there and talk to me.
It must be entertaining.
After 41 years, not so much. I will say to her, honey, I'm just a quiet, introspective man, to which she will say,
Oh, for crying out loud.
oh, for crying out loud, you never shut up, is what it usually comes out as.
How long have you been painting?
We've talked about that at dinner. I think about 25 years. In fits and starts. More seriously, probably for the last 10 or so. Okay, that's not a great shape, to be honest with you. So how can we make it a nicer shape? Take my spray bottle and spray it.
What did you do before you came?
I worked in IT for a financial services firm for a long time.
Was it as much fun?
It was fun. I had a job that I really loved for a long time. Okay. So we'll let that sit for a couple more minutes. So we're just kind of breaking that up some, letting it bleed up and bleed down, hopefully create a more interesting shape overall. Boy, that's dark. Woo! It's dark. How many chances do we get to make the rocks? Just one. It's an old credit card cut up into different interesting angles and lengths, so I can create different size rocks or masts or whatever. So, big rocks. So there's the blue and the green and the brown and all those colors that we had in our brush coming back to us. That's fun. And now it's not quite as dark as it was either. And if I don't like how some of those rocks turned out, at this point I can just take a damp brush and soften them and they go away. So this is a really good example of what I mean when I say as long as the pigment and paper is wet, I can do pretty much anything. And I know what would look really, really good in here that we haven't used yet all day, some of this lavender. If I just drop some lavender in, what I said, put lavender in, it does great stuff anywhere you put it. Moss on the rocks. Pretty much whatever I say, it is. We're working in watercolor, so splattering some water in is not the worst thing. I will almost always do fun stuff if we give it the opportunity. And then we haven't used any Jean Briand either, so let's drop some of that in. We said it's one of our favorite pigments, so let's.
What brand is that lavender?
It's Holbein. Holbein.
But it's still considered a transparent watercolor?
It is watercolor. Transparent, I would not label it that.
But it's
Okay.
as transparent as the Jean Briand.
Yeah, it's an opaque watercolor.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to, depending on how wet that is, that's really wet. I'm going to put in a piling. What color? You and you, thick pigments. Cobalt, burnt sienna, brown matter, cobalt. How many chances do I get to get this right? Just one. Nice rough texture. Nice. All the way down into the rocks. I'm sitting on the rocks. Okay. And maybe this with the same colors again. There's one of these things up here. And a smaller one over here. And right down into the rocks. And they're all tied together. Maybe one of those little dinghies comes over here and ties up from time to time. And do some of that. Okay, that's a lot going on down there. Wow. Shape, 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 shape. Values, pretty close on the value scale. And lots of texture. Soft texture, rough texture, a lot of rough texture in the masts down here in the pilings. Hard texture, different areas in here in the boats. Rough texture in here, some hard, a lot of soft here in the rocks. So a lot of interesting stuff going on there. Let's put a couple of things in the front of that Star of the Show boat to make it a little bit, give it some star quality. So, and yeah, there we go. Bam. Bam. Okay. And then maybe just some stuff. Oh, you know what? That's what we'll do. Thinking. Gosh, that's hard to do sometimes. It's so hard to do. Put a little bit of a bow line in here.
Turquoise?
Yep. then just a couple more touches, just a couple more. 4 minutes to go. Are you kidding me? Take your time. Slow down. Jean-Briand. Let's tie this boat up. Not too much. Don't get carried away. And this boat. You're tied up there. Maybe this boat over here. It's tied up over here too. Okay. Oh boy, it's a marine scene, so you know what we need. Oh, you know what? Yeah, we need a couple of birds. But before we do that, this area here really got washed out badly. So I'm gonna take a real chance.
Coast Guard.
Take a real chance and just put a couple of. Neither do I. Don't tell anybody. Okay. A little bit of dry brush strokes over here to add some texture in that area. Now maybe we think some birds might go in. I could screw it up now with birds. Oh boy.
I think a
No
nice,
guts, no glory. Okay.
No robins.
Simple birds. Cut 2 flicks of the brush. Simple, simple, simple birds. Nothing complicated. Got a lot of stuff going on over there. Where do birds belong? Where should you go? It's a good place for a bird.
sit on the boom with that crap on our deck.
That's an even stronger bird. Don't get too strong. And then just the suggestion of birds up here. People, boats, masts, rigging, water, reflections, cast shadows, rocks, lots going on. But I think for what we challenged ourselves with doing, with a quick squint of the eye and compare it to the value study. Oh, that's what I wanted to put in there. Keep thinking of things, keep thinking of things. Just to make this mast a little bit less symmetrical. I don't know what that is, but this boat needs to have one, I can tell you that. Just a little something like that. And then maybe we try to bring that mast down again. Okay, call it done.
Done.
Thank you for coming out and hanging out with me this evening. It was fun to paint with you. You were a wonderful, wonderful group. Any final questions?